Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of the Pole Position Podcast. A brand new episode, but also the last review of the 2019 season. Yes, the 2019 season has finished. The last race was in Abu Dhabi this Sunday just gone. And, well, I mean, it was an okay race. I mean, to be fair, you probably could have turned it off from lap 7 onwards, come back in maybe 45 minutes later and just watch the end. It was, well, I don't want to say a normal Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. They're never the best race of the season. It's a shame that it is the last race every year. I think the Brazilian Grand Prix would be a much better choice for the last race, but we all know why the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is the last one of the season. But the sun set on the final race of the season and the end of the 2019 championship, and I'm just going to go through a few points that have happened, look at some stats, look at the final driver standings of the 2019 season, talk about my predictions, and then round off the last review of the season. Without further ado, let's get into it. So point number 1 is Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes ending the season with a win. In terms of pole positions as well, this weekend just gone at Abu Dhabi was the first pole position for Lewis Hamilton since Germany. So it's been a long time for Lewis Hamilton to get back onto the pole position step, as it were. But the race was just vintage Lewis Hamilton. It was easy really for him. Once he got into the rhythm, not letting Max Verstappen get past in the first lap, it was sort of comfortable for him. And I think he finished at least 16-17 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. He competed, Lewis Hamilton, in his 250th Grand Prix, converted it into his 11th win of the season, and that's best ever season total, which he achieved in 2014 and 2018, or tying with his best ever season. I'm trying to read it off the screen. Normally it's notes that I have underneath me, but this week it's been on the screen, so I apologise if I'm looking at it across here. But so again, Lewis Hamilton, like I said, it was just a simple drive. I don't want to say a simple drive, actually, that's terrible wording, but it was a more comfortable drive for Lewis Hamilton than it's been for the last couple of races as well, especially Brazil, obviously with the penalties he had at Brazil as well. I think it was a much tougher race for Lewis Hamilton. This one was a lot more comfortable. He now finishes the season with 413 points and his 33rd consecutive points finish. And yeah, like I've said enough about Lewis Hamilton. People know who watch and listen to these now that I'm not the biggest Lewis Hamilton fan, but I have to give huge respect to him. I think he's does a tremendous job, tremendous driver. There is talk about him, a lot of talk about him actually going to Ferrari in 2021. His contract ends with Mercedes next year. And they've been asking him whether he's had talks with the Ferrari big bosses. He's obviously not going to discuss that, but he's always loved the prospect of maybe going to Ferrari in the future. So maybe he finishes his career at Maranello. We don't know. Obviously, Sebastian Vettel hasn't had the best year, finishing under Leclerc in the championship. So maybe Hamilton replaces Vettel for 2021. We don't know this. He might get a nice contract offer from Mercedes and might stay there. I mean, why leave a winning formula? So that's obviously things for Lewis Hamilton to discuss. And Mercedes back to their winning ways. Also, a quick mention to Valtteri Bottas. Had a tough weekend, if I'm honest. They changed his power unit, like I said in the preview. He then had an incident with Romain Grosjean in practice, which then caused him to have another power unit change, I think, and a few more bits changed to the car. So it was a very, very new engine and a gearbox, and I think power unit, turbocharger. So it was all brand new when he set off into qualifying and the race, and finishing from the back of the grid and securing fourth, very close to third as well. Very close to achieving that, and they were hoping with Charles Leclerc having fuel discrepancies that maybe Valtteri Bottas would get that third place. But we'll talk about more in the next point. But yeah, again, great for Valtteri Bottas. I think he needed that. Like I said, I think he needed a good race. I was tipping him to be pole position and win the race. But obviously with him having issues and starting at the back of the grid, I think to get that fourth position, because he was struggling at the beginning because they didn't have DRS. And I sort of enjoyed the not having DRS, because I think sometimes it's a bit too easy. So to see them struggling and having to race and overtake and pick their spots a lot more harder made the racing a bit more entertaining. But it did take him a little bit longer to get up the leaderboard. So I think credit to Valtteri Bottas. He has been talking about how he needs to improve even more. To compete with Lewis Hamilton, needs to be more consistent in staying at the top and getting more pole positions, obviously getting more wins. Lewis Hamilton, like I said, the 11th win. I'm not sure how many Valtteri Bottas has got, 3 or 4. It's not enough to compete with the British driver. So he was under weather coming into the week. So I think what he's done to finish in fourth position from the back is a good result. So I think he'll be happy with that. But just quickly, point number 1. Well done to Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, and of course Mercedes, and ending their season on a high in what's been a fantastic year. Winning the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship once again. Point number 2 is another Ferrari point. How interesting! Every week we always talk about Ferrari, obviously one of the biggest teams in the sport, but most of the time we talk about Ferrari in a bad way. This time we're obviously going to talk about them with some bad points, but they were lucky actually, because I did think that they would get a penalty with Charles Leclerc, having it been declared that they had given inaccurate fuel declaration for the driver. You sort of think Christian Horner at Red Bull was thinking, they might get a disqualification. He might, do the whole race and then they'll just disqualify him afterwards, which would be a shame after doing all that for Charles Leclerc. But the team in the end were fined. That he wasn't disqualified. He wasn't given his penalty. The team itself was fined €50,000 after the stewards did an inquiry after the race. So I think Charles Leclerc was lucky in that sense. He may have done the whole race for nothing, which, like I said, would have been a shame. And maybe because it's the last race this season, I don't think that actually would make a difference. But you never know. The stewards might think, we want to go off and we want to enjoy the holidays. So yeah, all right, we'll just give you a fine. That's probably not what it is. I think Charles Leclerc. Was a little bit lucky in that sense. Matteo Binotto had said earlier he was relaxed about the investigation, so we obviously believed that it wasn't as big of a deal as other people were making out. In terms of Ferrari, they had an okay weekend. It wasn't the best. Sebastian Vettel again. I don't know. It was just a bit like I don't want to say in no man's land, but there wasn't really much of a attack from Ferrari. I would say Verstappen was the best bet in the Red Bull, but even he finished 17 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. It was just that much of a dominant performance by the Mercedes driver. So I think Ferrari will be going into this winter thinking we need to up our game. We've obviously had issues. We've had the two drivers underperforming. Vettel, I think, the most, and I think he understands that. He knows as a driver he needs to do better for next year. Both drivers crashing into each other in the last race. Close to this was obviously them crashing out in Brazil and losing valuable points as well. Max Verstappen finishing ahead of both of them in the Drivers' Championship for the first time, so that's not good either. For a Red Bull on their own to beat both Ferraris is not good, and the Italian fans won't be happy with that. I'm not a huge Ferrari fan, but I know the Italian support, and I suppose the worldwide support of Ferrari, they won't be happy with that, the fact that the Red Bull have beat them this year. And I think they're going to have to go into the winter testing and preparing the new car to be even better. Look back to February at the beginning of this year and to the start of the season, everyone was believing Ferrari had the better car. Even Mercedes, I think, were believing that Ferrari did have the best overall package in terms of performance. But again, throughout the season, Mercedes have been the more reliable one. Mercedes have been the better in terms of strategy and tactics. And obviously that, reliability and strategy wins you the races, really. I mean, yes, you have to have the best drivers and to pull off the best moves and keep it calm up the front. But, with the best overall reliability and the best strategy to get your drivers in the best positions, that's what, wins your championships. And that's what Mercedes have done for the last, 5 seasons now. They've been that good. So, Ferrari are going to have to do something special in the winter. They've got 2 great drivers. I like Matteo Binotto as team principal. I think they've got a lot going for them. But, they really need to work on making sure everything is perfect. Because if it's not perfect, you're not going to beat Mercedes at this rate. So, point number 2 was supposed to be more about Charles Leclerc, but was just mainly about Ferrari and how they really need to improve if they want to beat Mercedes for the 2020 season. Point number 3, it's a sad point for me, and that's Nico Hulkenberg really finishing his career at F1. I don't see him coming back. It would be lovely to see him back on the grid. I think he is a good driver, and there's pictures of him with his crew, everyone with the really strange hairstyle. I mean, half of them are wearing that. I'm not sure that's anything like Nico Hulkenberg's, but yeah, sure, if you want to wear that hairstyle. I think it's a bit of a shame, and obviously he was close to being in the points. And the last couple of laps, he went down to P12, and it would have been nice for him to finish with a couple of points, or 1 point if he'd finished in 10th place. But yeah, I mean, he had a decent performance, but it just shows how bad really that Renault car has been this season, and hasn't given him or Ricciardo the consistency to achieve points in every race. It's been a bit of a shame, and I think getting rid of either driver, they wouldn't have obviously got rid of Ricciardo, but I think getting rid of either driver when you haven't performed as a team is a bit harsh. I mean, I'm obviously judging the fact that they Haas have signed Grosjean and Magnussen, and obviously they've had a really bad season in terms of their car, but I still think the drivers are very good either. So that's a different point. So I suppose, if I'm saying it about Haas, I should be all right with Hulkenberg leaving Renault, but it is a shame for me. I mean, obviously, Fernando Alonso was there this weekend, and he was trying to get a seat for the 2021 season. He's saying, I'm available if any team wants me. Obviously, a top team would be great. And obviously, Nico Hulkenberg will now be in that bracket as well. Esteban Ocon, who's had this year out, is going into Renault for next year. And like I've said for the last few podcasts, I understand why Renault did that. French driver and a French team, young driver, enthusiastic. Obviously wants to do well. You can see why they've done it, but it is a shame for Nico Hulkenberg. Did get driver of the day, which was good. Like I said, a lot of people were talking about we will give Nico Hulkenberg driver of the day. So I think the fact that he's got it is great, and it's it's nice. I mean, he had a good race, but it's a shame he couldn't have ended it with points. But point number 3, he bows out in style, and congratulations to Nico Hulkenberg on a great career in F1. It's just a shame he didn't get that podium, and he didn't get that chance to fight at the top, but hopefully we might see him again. And going on from Nico Hulkenberg to Esteban Ocon. He's delighted to be back. Looking at this news article that's just come up the day I'm recording this, he's done his first outing for Renault in the Abu Dhabi test, and he said it was a fantastic feeling getting back into the car and getting back into a new team really in Renault. He's obviously been part of the Mercedes team. He's obviously driven for Force India. Obviously now Racing Point for this year, but last season for Force India. Fantastic to be back. Excited for getting back in the car, and after waiting months to get into it, finally Hulkenberg's out the door, passes him his overalls and says, "There you go, Esteban, it's yours now." Basically. It'll be good to see. Like I said, it's interesting to say and to see Esteban Ocon in that car. Will he be confident going into it? Has he been given assurances that Renault is obviously going to perform? It all depends really. I mean, testing, which I discussed last week with the tickets being out and I was talking about maybe going, but testing is great. But you never know until Melbourne, so on the first race of the season. So it will be interesting to see where Renault are. I think they had that 3 or 4 year plan. I think we're way past that. We're either a year out or the plan had finished like this season. So next year is into the unknown, really, in terms of their planning stages that we talked about when they first came into the sport. So it is interesting to see where they are. And I think, obviously McLaren have done better than them this year, and McLaren have their engine. McLaren, Renault on 145 points. Renault Works team only on 91, which I said earlier in terms of the Hulkenberg point is, that's why Hulkenberg and Ricciardo haven't been given a good car. You can just look in the points in terms of that. It hasn't been consistent. They've been unreliable compared to McLaren. So obviously McLaren have had a better chassis and a better reliability than the Renault Works team. So I think that really needs looking at if you are the Renault team. And let's hope for Esteban Ocon's sake that he's going into a team that's going to be improving for next season. I think it's an absolute shame. Just quickly, I'm not doing the 5 points this week. I've obviously gone to point number 4, but I'm going to quickly look at Robert Kubica as well. He's another driver that's leaving. Another great shame for the sport. I think, like I said in the preview, he's done a fantastic job to get back into the sport for this season. And like I said, there is talk of him maybe going to Racing Point as a test driver, reserve driver for next season. So I think, well done to Robert Kubica. He's done extremely well to get back into the sport of Formula One. And I think he deserves absolute credit. I think the car's been obviously awful for him, and I think I can safely say that. Williams finishing the season with just 1 point with that Mercedes engine in the back, which has won, Mercedes itself on 739 points, Williams Mercedes on 1. So we can safely say it is not the power unit that's been the issue for Williams this year. It has been the chassis, it's been the car itself. So shame for Kubica that he's had that coming back into this season. Obviously George Russell's young, he can evolve and keep going for a few more years, but Kubica, this was his 1 year in the sport, and it's a shame that it's happened and come out and Williams haven't given him the right car. So it's a shame for Robert Kubica, but I think, like he said, he's achieved everything that he's wanted to get back in. So fair dues to Robert Kubica. Just quickly about my predictions. I knew they would be wrong because I started with Valtteri Bottas, and I obviously had to change that very late on, knowing that he had power unit problems. So I picked Max Verstappen for both. And as soon as Max Verstappen didn't get the overtake on the first lap, I knew that this was going to be Lewis Hamilton's race, and obviously qualifying was the same as well. So I got both my predictions wrong after having them right in Brazil, which was an absolute shame, but I suppose I should finish the season how I normally do, and that's not winning my own predictions. Lewis Hamilton, obviously, like I said, was a worthy winner, so I can't disagree, but it would have been nice to get 2 predictions in a race in a row right. I'm not going to go any more detail onto that because obviously I lost it. Quickly on the driver standings for 2019, the final standings, Lewis Hamilton on 413, winning the championship. Valtteri Bottas with 326, so he's got a lot, like I said, to improve on to get more consistent in them wins. Max Verstappen, like I said, finishing in 3rd place and securing that with 278. Charles Leclerc beating his teammate Sebastian Vettel, that's what I was talking about, so Vettel will not be happy with that. Leclerc on 264, Vettel on 240, and then you have McLaren with Carlos Sainz in 96 points in 6th, Pierre Gasly on 95 points in 7th, Alex Albon with 92 in 8th, Daniel Ricciardo with 54 in 9th, and in 10th place is Sergio Perez for Racing Point with 52. Quickly on the constructor standings as well, Mercedes obviously winning comfortably, 739, Ferrari with 504, Red Bull Racing Honda 417, McLaren, like I said, securing the 4th place, 145, Renault 91, did secure it in the end. They did get 5th position, beating Toro Rosso Honda, who had 85 in the end. Racing Point with 73, Alfa Romeo Ferrari with 57, Haas with 28, they need improvement for next year, and Williams Mercedes with 1. That wraps up the 2018, that wraps up the 2019 season, should I say, with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix review. Let me know your thoughts on the race. What did you think? I mean, I'm surprised I've got 20 minutes out of this because I didn't think it would be that much of a review to talk about. But I will be doing more videos about maybe the season and review it as a whole. And we'll be doing more videos over the winter to keep us going until testing and March when the new season begins. So yeah, thank you very much for listening and watching on YouTube. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Thank you very much.